Hello, and welcome to Hugo Girl, the podcast where we normally read and discuss Hugo Award-winning fiction. And today we're doing a special episode where we're going to talk about fictional foods with Ginger Thomason, who is an expert in fictional foods. So
Hello.
welcome, Ginger, and thank you so much for joining us today. Do you want to just take a minute and introduce yourself?
Well, certainly. Thank you for having me. I'm Ginger Lee Thomason. I am originally from the state of Utah, but I'm actually doing my PhD program in the United Kingdom in a school called Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge. And my degree is a PhD in creative writing, but my academic thesis is focusing on food and science fiction and fantasy literature, specifically how it's used in world building, how to kind of identify it in literature and how other authors have used it and how that's affected my writing. So that's kind of the background that I'm coming from. So my PhD has somewhat of a catch-all, but it is narrow in that I'm looking at how food is used in writing specifically.
That's cool, though.
Cool.
I know we've talked in other episodes about how food and writing especially can be so powerful and memorable from things that we've read 30 years ago.
Oh, certainly.
Yay, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so the kind of stars aligned because we recorded an episode a couple months ago, and Haley said specifically she wanted to talk at some point about noodles, I think,
Yes.
and do like a food episode, and in particular about how noodles are the perfect science fiction food. And then I think it was like actually that same day that somehow you popped up in my feed, somebody commented on something, and you had Ginger is writing her fictional food thesis as your name on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, all the stars have just aligned for this to happen. So that was very exciting. So we are really looking forward to chatting with you.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
So do you guys want to start with bread?
Bread. I love bread.
Who doesn't love bread?
Yes. And bread seems to be in every book. There's some kind of bread that's specific to that universe, or bread or something bready.
Carbs, man.
Haley had written a good outline about some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. And in that, part of it was foods for nutrition only. And it seems like these breads sort of fall into that category. We see a lot of journeying and taking bread in our bag on the journey to go defeat the evil or find the thing or solve the problem. And so some that we had on our list were, of course, lembas from Lord of the Rings. And then there are others. There's Gishi Mishi in Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. There's Cash Bread in the 5th season. So just kind of wondered what you think about the breads and the survival aspect of these foods.
Oh, this is something I have touched quite a bit in kind of in my novel and also in my research, and that bread symbolism is just everywhere, but because it's one of those things that marks human civilization versus the Neolithic hunter-gatherer system versus the agricultural man or human species. So I would say it definitely just ties into that. Bread is so symbolic in mythology and in religion, and up until obviously up until like the last 25 years, 20 years ago when Atkins hit, bread was the staple of the human diet.
Has it been 20 years?
Well, there's the whole carbophobia that started in the early 2000s.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
So we as a society are semi-detached from bread, but I think that's changing, especially with during COVID. It was just like everyone was baking banana bread and everyone was discovering how to do sourdough starters. So I think
Yes.
it's still there, but we do think of bread as removed from our diets anymore, and that's kind of sad because bread is just awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. Bread in these stories is integral to survival, and in modern life, bread is almost the enemy.
Yeah.
How do I eat less bread? And then you've got Oprah talking about, I just manage how much I love bread. I just deal with it.
It's funny because I was perusing the news the other day and I saw an article on CNN about how Syrian people, very war-torn country, and the people are queuing up for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours for bread. And it's just like in America, it's like bread is not even on the shelves hardly anymore. It's like, oh, don't need that. But people, it's still a survival food, even in our current society. It's just not in America right now. So
definitely, they still, the talking point against moving towards shall we say, get on those long topics of the debate against socialism and communism, but that's kind of always the talking point is like, do you want bread lines? And it's just like, but in terms of what I would say in science fiction and fantasy, bread is definitely portable. Things like what we think of as bread is not what these fantasy characters are talking about. Obviously, when we remember in the extended scenes, the lembas in Lord of the Rings, it looks more like a cracker, and this is what journey bread looked like for hundreds of years. During the Revolutionary War, they would make it out of corn cakes, but it would be this kind of hard tack bread, and basically you would gnaw on it, and what it would do is kind of like when you put a saltine cracker in your mouth, you know how the flour kind of turns to sugar? This is what this whey bread would do. It's these dense nutrition little squares because the saliva in your mouth is turning that flour into sugar, and that's turning it into more carbs and more calories for you to digest.
Haley is a hardtack expert.
I am very into naval history, and so like I've actually made old timey recipes. So like they would use hardtack too as like they would you would be on watch late at night, up in the crow's nest and it's cold and you're just like sucking on your hardtack. But they would also use it in recipes. They would break it up and mix it into their split peas to make like a weird stew. But it's the most portable way for a lot of cultures to store flour so that it doesn't go bad.
Definitely.
It could just last indefinitely.
Well, it is kind of like a loaf of roux, isn't it?
Yeah, it is actually a kind of a soup hack if you don't have any cream or you don't want dairy in your soup, to take a piece of bread and blend it into your soup. And then you have a creamier stock because of that bread. So that makes sense to me that you would crumble up your hardtack. Although I have a hard time imagining how you crumble hardtack, having sampled some of your homemade hardtack.
Oh, I know exactly how they
do it.
I know exactly how. There's a common, at this point, cliche, I think, in a lot of historical food writing that's like, you would take the butt of your rifle and like smash it. So, but it's true. Like, so it's funny because there's like this hard molar breaking hardtack, but then I think about in The Force Awakens when Rey gets her 1/4 portion and makes that bread that like fizzes and then rises automatically.
Yeah.
That's a very soft bread. So
that bread looks really delicious.
Yeah.
Well, I read that they did that bread with like its actual not special effects. What is the other
practical
term?
Effects.
It's a practical effect that they were like blowing it up with this balloon from underneath her, and it's just
That's fun. It's like Jiffy Pop of bread.
Yeah. It looked like the really doughy like Texas Roadhouse steakhouse biscuits, just like super yeasty, and I'd eat it. So
Those are my 100% favorites.
Look at Star Wars. It's probably from like a grain that we've never heard of, but something like like analogous to something made with yucca flour, probably. Although I don't think tubers would grow in Jakku with all of that stuff.
That's true. They probably have to like import. It's probably really expensive. That's why she has to scavenge in the desert.
Imported bread.
Yep.
So maybe that's a pleasure food and less of a hardtack survival food.
Yeah, that's true. Because at that point, she's just living out in the desert. She's not really journeying. She's just, trying to get enough food to live. So,
but it's just like when you saw her, it was so nice. Like, I was thinking earlier about female characters enjoying food in movies, and Rey definitely enjoys her food. And I was also thinking of like Harley Quinn enjoying her binging in Birds of Prey. But I think throughout all of Star Wars, especially when they visit Maz Kanata's little den, you just see Rey gorging herself on fruit, and it's probably like the first time she's ever been able to gorge herself on something like fruit.
She definitely has scurvy. Yeah, I mean, I still remember from that movie, like when she flies down, she's like, I've never seen so much green, and she's like, there's so much vitamin C in these persimmons or whatever.
How do people in space not get scurvy? What are we doing about that?
I know that in old-timey ships, they'd have huge barrels and vats full of like lime juice. So
Yeah, lemons and limes.
Although I imagine
I've never seen the Mandalorian take a vitamin C tablet. I'm just saying.
Well, I think in defense of space travel, they go a lot quicker, so maybe they're getting planet side more often to go get a salad somewhere instead of 6 months at sea. So
that's true. That makes sense.
Vitamins.
Yeah.
So, Ginger, a book that we talk about all the time on our podcast that is not really relevant to our podcast
always relevant.
It's The Terror by Dan Simmons, who is a Hugo Award winner and maybe not a very nice person. But we all like that book. Have you read it?
I have not. I've actually not read any Dan Simmons. But is that the one that the vampire or zombie show is based off of?
No. The Terror is a... Haley, take it away.
Yes. Okay. Well, you have to read it. The Terror is a fictional account of the Franklin expedition to find the Northwest Passage in 1848. But the book takes place basically in one or two ships that get frozen into the ice for 3 solid years. And you just are living on these boats with your men at sea. But Dan Simmons makes it interesting by kind of superimposing a mythical polar bear. It doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but everyone I've made read it, and that's 5 or 6 people now. They love it. But you learn a lot about naval history. So.
Yeah, fun is a hard word to apply to that book. It's very bleak, but it is very enjoyable.
They do a lot of taking stock of their provisions, and you might really enjoy the food aspect of it because they start getting sick, and it's not really necessarily clear to modern readers, but knowing what we know, we can assume maybe they had some botulism or lead poisoning or something because they got discounted provisions and the soldering was not done quite right. So they're getting sick. Maybe it's lead, maybe it's something else, maybe it's both. So they do a lot of talking about their food and looking very closely at their food, and it's all really miserable. And we love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
This really is just now a Terror Stan account.
Well, and when it's not a Terror Stan account, it's a Moby Dick Stan account.
That's right. Which also food.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, Chowder is the best chapter.
Well,
Oh, yeah. Speaking of chowder, I was actually going to bring this up. I don't know where it belongs, but in one of the more recent episodes of The Mandalorian, there's a chowder hose.
The chowder hose!
Oh, I was so excited. The chowder hose.
Chowder hose.
And then a whole squid or something comes out of it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
What's about to happen?
Baby Yoda's going to eat it.
And he loved it. He likes
it. Seems like Baby Yoda can handle pretty much anything that's put in his bowl.
Iron stomach, that kid.
That's like Baby Yoda is the new Nibbler.
Yes,
Nibbler from
yes.
Futurama.
Oh, yeah.
Or what are those things in Harry Potter that want all the gold? He's like that, but for food.
Niffler.
Oh, yeah, Niffler.
Oh,
yeah.
Niffler. Oh, yeah.
Cool. Well, bread is good. What else?
Other
So,
survival
no
foods
bread.
on our list.
Yeah.
Soylent, both in real life and Soylent Green, and roach jello blocks from Snowpiercer.
Never say it again. Never, ever, ever say it again.
Amy has a very big fear of roaches.
No, I did see Snowpiercer on the big screen, and so that was kind of interesting to see this big vat of churning
Stop it.
jelly.
Stop it.
Sorry, apologies.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm joking.
But it's interesting how, especially with climate change, the way of the future is there's going to be a lot more insect protein in our diets if we're going to survive. And
Absolutely.
It's so interesting what the food industry is doing with that. But I went to the Oxford Food Symposium in 2018, and one of the starters that they gave was roasted crickets on these tortilla chips with guacamole. I declined mostly for the guacamole because I'm not an avocado fan. But I remember reading a menu for another Mexican restaurant in New York City, and one of the things that he had on the menu was roasted crickets in a taco. And I thought, you know what? I would be tempted to spend $8 just to see what that taco tastes like. But I ended up not going there. So definitely insect protein is something that's going to probably end up being one of those things that it's science fiction brought into real life.
I've had crickets before. They're crunchy and mostly taste like whatever seasoning you have on them. So, yeah, it's like
a little like dirt.
It's inoffensive. Yeah, you'd think it's going to be something, but it's not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine it would be like dehydrated vegetables, like you can get those freeze dried like beans and soybeans.
Yeah, it's in that same vein for sure.
It's so funny that we're so averse to bugs, but I'm like, let me eat this cow's butt. That's completely fine.
And we won't eat bugs, but we'll eat lobsters. Like, to me, lobsters look exactly like bugs. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, lobsters and shrimp too.
Oh yeah, shrimp nasty.
Shrimp hold all their poop right there in the middle, and honestly, I'm usually too lazy to clean it out.
I mean, shrimp is delicious, but it's also, if you think about it, nasty.
Well, it's just like, how do people eat crawfish in the South? It's just like you're boiling the whole carcass, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how we
They're
cook
so
crabs
good,
too.
too.
I mean, you just throw it in boiling water and crack it open.
No,
And the people will suck the cooking juice out of the crawfish's head, and I won't do it, but
I can't bring myself to do that. Yeah.
I think Kevin will. My husband, who does all of our audio editing, he has no problem about it. He's like, give me that crawfish.
I mean, I really love raw oysters, and I don't know why. I shouldn't.
They're basically an eyeball, but I'll eat it.
Yeah, no, I know a ton of people who love oysters, and I actually oysters do feature a scene in my novel, and I've done some dissection on oyster imagery and whatnot in science fiction and fantasy literature. Just a few chapters in my, or not chapters, just a few paragraphs in my thesis.
You said your novel a second ago? You have a novel?
Yes. So my novel is How to Cook a Dragon. It's currently it's still in the editing stages. It's nowhere near close to publication, but I'll be submitting it with my thesis for my PhD in January. But there's a scene where one character eats oysters, and she kind of has this synesthetic experience where she experiences the oyster eating the things out of the ocean, and the sun in the lemons. She can taste the sun in the lemon juice that's on the oyster, and so I'm kind of proud of that scene.
It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Lori, what does eating a dragon mean when you connect dragons in fantasy to being a horse girl?
Oh no!
Oh wow! I don't think I'm prepared for this question.
I mean,
I've never connected dragons to horses.
I thought we talked about this.
Really?
Maybe I just sent you a link and assumed you read it.
Well, there was that Tatooine dragon. From
the Krayt dragon.
Mandalorian.
And that apparently it's like the best meat on earth. And then you cook it under like a pod racing engine, and it's just.
I love that. I took screen caps of that scene, and I'm like, I got to figure out a way to talk to this, because the way Baby Yoda is looking at it, it's just like that's how I would look at a piece of nicely roasted Wagyu. It's like this is like primo, and even the little child knows it.
Yeah, I remember after the end of that episode, I was Googling, is Krayt dragon meat delicious? Because like he's saving it for a reason, and it turned out it was for Amy Sedaris' character, the Ripley knockoff. But like I was like, I need to know about the mythology of Krayt dragon meat. How do you cook it? What's it taste like? Is it fatty? I don't know. I wanted all the details.
Yeah.
Did you get any details?
No.
I'll
have to
write that fanfic. Write that fanfic, Healy.
Was it invented for The Mandalorian, or was it featured in some of the other novels?
Well, so I'm a big old Star Wars nerd, and I'd never heard about Krayt dragon meat. But to be fair, it wasn't until The Mandalorian that I learned about the Krayt dragon egg that the Jawas love so much. So
yeah,
I think the show was just doing fun stuff with food, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Jon Favreau, right? He did that chef movie a few years back. He's definitely a foodie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I think it's been great to kind of see a little bit of like, because I think, and this is part of a larger theme that I put as a theme to discuss, is like science fiction can be very cold sometimes. It can be very different to what we think humanity or life and the world is like. But when characters eat, that brings it back to like what we do, and everybody eats 3 times a day. So,
definitely, that is definitely kind of just we all eat. So it's even if it's just a fleeting mention of food in a text, sometimes it will tell you more about the world building than telling us about the skyscrapers and the trees and whatnot. Just mentioning offhand a food stuff can change the context of the world building.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think people don't maybe even realize when they're doing it, but like it's such a big statement about the world. So one of the examples that I think that I'll never forget about, so in dystopias, like I know in a book called The Road by Cormac McCarthy, very bleak. The world has ended. There's been like a pandemic. Everyone's just surviving. People are eating babies. And there's one scene where like they have just a can of corn for dinner, but it's like the best meal they've had in 6 months. And I'm just like, can of corn.
Is that also the one where they drink the last Coke?
Yeah, which is the saddest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, no, I have to admit, The Road is not one of my favorites.
No, it's bleak. It's bleak.
Well, no, not necessarily for the content. It's just like, do you have to use the word gray 5 times a page?
Oh, God.
It's just like there's minimalism and then there's repetitiveness.
Yeah, I'm not a very big fan of Cormac McCarthy, but I read all of The Road in one sitting by the pool one summer in like an afternoon, which is a really weird mind fuck.
Just a little beach read, a little light beach read.
I've never heard him described as like a beach book.
Yeah, he's not like life affirming.
Well, I loaned my copy of The Handmaid's Tale to my aunt once, and I said, "You got to read this." And something a couple of months later, she's like, "I read this at the side of the pool in Vegas," and I'm like, "This is not a beach book."
I guess any book is a beach book if you read it at the beach, right? Just like any body is a bikini body if you put a bikini on it.
Yep, that's true.
Speaking of The Handmaid's Tale, my favorite, not my favorite, but one of the images that I remember most from that book is not like the horrifying sexual assault or, like the weird dystopian themes. It's when, I think it's Offred, she's, got her weird relationship with the commander in her house, and he's like, "I'll get you some butter to use as lotion." And she puts it on her elbows, and I always remember that.
Well, actually, no, I don't mean to correct you. This is actually something I kind of talked about in my thesis.
Oh, cool.
She uses the butter. She steals it from her tray.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Before,
yeah,
and then,
the butter's like their moisturizer on the down low.
Yeah, and he gets her real lotion. Yeah.
Yeah, she goes to the commander for real lotion, and he gets her stuff from like a hospital or whatever. But she's just so thankful for.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing I did write about the butter, and The Handmaid's Tale has got some very interesting food imagery. There's one instance where she's contemplating eating a cigarette that Serena Joy gives her, which is a symptom of pica.
Yeah.
And obviously we learn that she's pregnant, so it's probably this connection that she wants to eat the cigarette because she's experiencing pica from her pregnancy.
Fascinating.
Oh man, that missed me.
That's my theory.
That was exciting. That was an exciting revelation.
Is there any more? What's some more food stuff? Like, I really like the scenes when they were in the kitchen with the aunt. Was it aunt? No. What was the name of the class of people that worked in the kitchens?
Are you talking about the Marthas?
The Marthas. Yeah.
Well, some of the other food imagery that I mentioned is when she goes to the grocery shopping. The handmaids have 2 roles in the society. They go and get the food from the grocery store, and they provide the babies.
Interesting.
And so I dissect one of the scenes where she goes grocery shopping and how she notes that there are oranges at the grocery store, and she's like, it would be something to get oranges for the commander and his wife. And then a few sentences later, we meet, her name's Janine, but is she of Warren?
Yes.
Yeah. We see her pregnant, and obviously, what is the fruit saying that they say in Gilead?
Blessed be the fruit.
Yeah. So it's just like
the orange. The fruit.
Yeah. She wants to make oranges happen is kind of in her mind. She wants to make a baby happen. So that's some of the dissection that
that's fascinating. I like it.
Stuff that I tried to link together. I'm not sure if it's, it's just one of those, it's just stretching it.
Nah.
That's cool.
I need to reread it though. I haven't read it in a while, and I did not watch the show, so I feel like I need to reread it and look for some of this stuff that I don't remember.
If you like audiobooks, I definitely recommend the Elizabeth Moss narration. It's really good.
She has a narration.
Good.
I don't usually listen to audiobooks, but I'd listen to her read the phone book.
Claire Danes had a recording, but Elizabeth Moss did one for Audible too. So
cool.
Oh, good to know. Yeah, I do like audiobooks for books that I've read before, and then we're doing them for the podcast. I'll sometimes do audiobooks to help me catch up. Well, back when I commuted and I'd listen to them on the train or on the bus, and now I don't commute, so I have more time to actually look at things on the page. I kind of want to skip to Ginger, where you had noted in our outline about Turkish Delight, and I think Haley had mentioned this too. Like, why does Turkish Delight sound so good? And It isn't.
I have one quick theory. So I am not a smoker. I've never been a smoker, but there's a blend of Camel cigarettes that like claims itself as like a Turkish blend of tobacco. So for me, and I'm only speaking for myself, I wonder if it's like tied to like this exotic, delicious cigarette.
Well, they literally call it delight.
Yeah, no, I mean it's like that's like a great generic term for a delicious thing.
But
So,
there-
I don't know.
It doesn't Edmund like throw away his whole family for
Yes.
a mountain of Turkish delight?
Yes, he like totally betrays his entire family for basically gross jelly marzipan. It's nasty.
So like many people, I read that scene. It's just like, what does Turkish delight taste like? I don't think I ever had it as a child, but when I learned that it was flavored with rose, I kind of wrote it off as just like, I'm not a fan of rose flavored things. But I went to, did I get it from Selfridges or Harrods? I actually went to like one of those really nice department food sections in London, and I got some Turkish delight. And I mean, I won't say it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great.
Not a delight.
I wonder if it's like heroin or something. It's like it's not it's like not objectively good, but you will ruin your life to get it. I don't know.
Well,
I think heroin's pretty objectively good, isn't it?
That's
well,
true.
I found an article, and this woman did some research, and she says that Victorians were obsessed with Turkish delight, and it also came about the same time when sugar got really cheap in the Victorian era, when I believe it was Gladstone that reduced the sugar tax on the white sugar. So sugar was suddenly plentiful. And before that, these Turkish delight tins were being imported from Turkey, and Victorians were all crazy about it. But I don't remember the name of the paper or the author, but she theorizes that when Victorians started making their own Turkish delight, it didn't come out the same way as all of this stuff imported from Turkey. And so there was suddenly this contrast between Victorian London Turkish delight and the real stuff coming off the old Silk Road. And so something, maybe C.S. Lewis remembered this or experienced this, that he had this really good genuine Turkish delight, but post-war England, there was no sugar, there was no Turkish delight. There certainly wasn't Turkish delight coming from Turkey. And so that's all, just one of those things that ended up colliding for a writer, and it's become an iconic mainstay in fantasy and science fiction literature.
She had the good stuff, not the knockoff.
Definitely.
Not the British knockoff.
This makes sense. I've got really into a couple weeks ago the show called Victorian Farm, where people go and live on a farm and have to pretend like everything is the 1880s. And when they cook, they have to cook, only things with, local ingredients. And I've noticed this in a lot of historical cookbooks and recipes. Like, there's raisins in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, raisins aren't the best thing, in my opinion, but, like, I think they were so new and, like, was such a new, different form of sugar, if you had sugar at all.
Yeah.
And people didn't for a long time in, the Western canon, I guess. So they're just like, yeah, let's just put raisins in this stew, raisins in this rice, raisins in these vegetables, whatever. So, a different flavor, I guess.
Well, I mean, dried fruit is still a mainstay in a lot of Moroccan, Middle Eastern cooking, too.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I had some really good rice. I went to, I believe it's Lebanese restaurant here, but they had this really good rice dish that you can get that has like dried fruit in it, and it's delicious. I don't know what's different about
I
theirs.
was like biryani.
I went to a wedding. A friend, Iranian friend, had Persian jeweled rice at her wedding. It was amazing.
Ooh, yeah.
Well,
It has all kinds of spices in it, and then the dried fruit was, so it's like these little pops of color, which is, I imagine, why it's called jeweled rice. It's so good and so pretty.
It is Persian.
Yeah.
The restaurant's Persian, everyone. Corrections corner.
Is it Sufi?
Yeah.
Yeah, that place is great.
Yeah.
So Sufi is the place that I actually had rosewater ice cream for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is disgusting. It tastes like a grandma's perfume.
Yeah.
But then I kept eating it. I just kept eating it. It's like, I gotta understand this flavor.
Maybe you
I
would
didn't
like Turkish
understand
delight then.
No, like, I have a bad habit of doing this at work when, like, people leave free food in the break room. Because, like, usually sometimes it's like, oh, I made a cake. But then sometimes it's like, I don't like this popcorn I bought. And I remember I would always, like, try something, and then if I didn't like it, I'd be like, I'm gonna keep going and figure out why I don't like it. So I would probably be trouble with Turkish delight, I imagine.
Yeah.
Haley, that whole process reminds me of the time that we went to a No Mas Cantina, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about No Mas because the food is normally good. But Kevin and I were just talking about it earlier when we had a coupon for free cheese dip, and we went there, and the cheese dip was just like a bowl of roux. It was white, and it was creamy, and it was dippable, and it did not taste like cheese. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, and I just kept eating it.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I think if I just keep eating this, it's going to taste like cheese.
Yeah, because it looked just like it, but it did not.
It was definitely just flour and milk.
Speaking of weird food analogs, and this might be a good segue into something else, but last week I bought a bottle of that Just Egg, which is like the vegan egg substitute, because I had seen it in the store for a long time.
Oh, the aquafaba?
Yeah, like it's got some kind of pea protein, and so I cooked it up, added a little black Himalayan sea salt, which is supposed to give like an eggy flavor, and and the texture was on point, but the flavor was not there. But I finished it, and I'll probably eat the rest of the bottle. But it was definitely not egg.
Yeah, I guess I thought that was for like a substitute in baking and not for like a standalone food.
Oh no! Like I went to the website and like they're like, yeah, make a fried
Make an omelet.
Yeah. Well, no. So it actually does not omelet at all. But like if you make a scrambled egg sandwich with cheese, it's I'm sure it'd be fine. But
that reminds me of like space books and stuff when they have like they have a lot of like vegetable based or soy based fake proteins that they're trying to fake are something else. That happens a lot, I feel like, especially in sci-fi. Like they're in space eating protein product that's supposed to taste like steak or something, which I guess just means there's a shortage of meat in the future. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
like later. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just to say, I would imagine that's partially where it comes from because in Becky Chambers' The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, one of the characters was raised on Mars, and so she's actually had beef, whereas none of the other humans on the Wayfarer have. And it's just like how especially I think in the recognition of climate change and all that people are recognizing that there probably won't be so much meat in the future, but also soy, the way the food industry has broken down both soy and corn. If any of you have read anything by Michael Pollan or Eric Schlosser, I think he's the one who did Food Inc. They go into a lot of this, that the way the molecules in both corn and soy are bound together, you're able to untangle them and restructure them. So it probably leads into something like that. That corn and soy are just like these magic science foods that's in everything anymore, but it's based in the real science that we've already come up with all these things to do with soy and corn.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, if you look at an actual corn from like Kroger or Publix, this is like a 9-inch beautiful pearly thing that tastes sweet.
Mm-hmm.
But like the actual corn that like Native Americans grew was like 4 inches long, very different. Like we have completely steroided out what the idea of corn should be. So I imagine that.
How was your corn that you grew in your yard? Was it little, or did you get grocery store corn?
So it depends. I grew 3 types. I grew I'm assuming GMO corn that grew 8 feet tall, had, foot long stalks. But then the one that I gave you, Lori, and that I gave to a few other friends was like a native heirloom with like the red. It was called Painted Ladies. And one, they didn't thrive as much, and they didn't create nearly as big stalks or ears. So,
yeah, I got one little ear of corn that was about the length of my thumb, and the kernels were beautiful, but I didn't eat it.
Yeah, no,
it was basically a baby corn.
There's a reason why people genetically engineer things, I suppose.
My grandfather had a farm here in Utah, and I just remember we would have corn several times during the summer, and it was just the most amazing stuff to have this fresh corn that was picked 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And
I bet it's so delicious.
Yeah. But I'm sure he used, whatever Monsanto or anyone was pushing back in the day, but yeah.
Makes good corn.
It's good corn.
It's good, yeah. I mean, I'm sure if you Google it, you can find a million websites. So like, what original fruits and vegetables look like versus how we produce them today. And it's very different. So.
Oh, the original bananas, they freak me out. I kind of have that trypophobia where I don't like looking at things with holes. So whenever like what fruits and vegetables really look like, I'm like, I can't open that article because I can't look at those early bananas.
I gotta look at it right now. Original bananas, and then Google fills in original bananas in pajamas.
Oh man, I would not want a regular old banana.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
weird.
with those big weird seeds.
Yes, stop.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
What a waste of a banana.
Reminds me of sort of a loofah.
Yeah. It would feel like.
Well, Chinese okra is what the loofah is.
Oh,
So
really?
maybe it
I
is
did not know
distantly
that.
related.
These don't look like something that I would instinctively pick up and eat.
Yeah, so like, who decided, like, I'm gonna make these better after?
I think I would peel that banana and I'd be like, oh, sorry, this is someone's home.
Or I'd be like, this is a rotten piece of fruit. No, thank you.
Well, it's just like in the case of the corn with the Native Americans, it's like indigenous peoples were amazing botanists. And so probably some noticed that some gene gave off more white flesh instead of seeds, and they probably just picked those seeds and planted them again. And it just kind of, that's how we got sweeter apples and all this stuff is just like people were so close to the earth at one point, and now we're kind of distanced from it. And with all this stuff happening in the lab instead of happening right out in the field anymore. Food history fascinates me.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. I'm so often curious about how did we learn how to make bread? Because my husband he predated the pandemic with his sourdough craze, but he is a sourdough guy. And
He liked it before it was cool.
It's so interesting to see a bag of flour and some water and a little salt, and we end up with this beautiful food.
Mm-hmm.
And I just am like, how did we figure this out? What accident helped us figure out that we could turn these things into these other things?
Oh, there's several theories. I would point, if you want to read into them, Michael Pollan's Cooked. He has a bread baking chapter and he goes through all of it. But I believe a few years after he published that book, some research came out that they found wheat seeds in a cave in Africa or the Middle East or somewhere, that they think bread baking is now like 10,000 years older than they thought.
Oh, wow.
Maybe not quite 10,000 years, but a couple thousand years older than they originally thought it was, that this act of bread making. So who knows?
Have you read, Ginger, have you read this book called Food and History by Ray Tannehill?
I've looked through it. I haven't read it all the way through. I went through it and there wasn't much that I wanted to use for my PhD, so I don't think I returned to it, but I am familiar with it.
Yeah, so it is the book that like kicked off my love of food history, because like it kind of, there's a chapter about like somebody was like, we should take the wheat from this chaff and then we should put it into a hot oven accident, so like it kind of gets into some of the history of like the why.
Mm-hmm. They're pretty sure that bread making started from porridges and pottages and whatnot, that it was probably an accident of leftover porridge, because that's what initially they grew the grains for, the oats and the corn and the barley and all this stuff, is it originally went into mush that you would eat for 3 meals a day.
So much mush.
Mishy.
Yeah, so much mush.
I really like mush, though.
Yeah, I mean, like oatmeal is a great, very nutritious thing. So
it's why it's the food in the Matrix, right? Or whatever the tasty wheat with the tasty wheat tasting goop.
What's funny though is, so I work in the startup world, which is like startup bros work all the time, productive all the time, and I know people that like don't want to waste time eating, so they'll drink like, actually Soylent Now, which is a weird thing that you can buy, or like people that have a Cliff Bar for lunch, and I don't understand them, but
that's me.
I don't get it. Like to me, I make literally every meal an event, but like there's some people that just like have to put food in their stomach so they can keep typing or coding or whatever. I don't know. So.
Or intermittent fasting, like Jack Dorsey was all about. And I was just like, what, dude?
2 coworkers are doing that intermittent fasting thing. It is baffling to me.
I tried it for a little while at the beginning of the year, and I can't really give you a reason that I decided to try it. I went through some reconsiderations of my career path at the beginning of the year, and it had some side effects, such as I think I feel like I have no control over my life, so today I won't eat until 4 p.m. And I have not eaten meat other than seafood in a long time, like at least probably 12 years now. And the end result of maybe like 2 weeks of intermittent fasting for me was that I ate a chicken shawarma and a cheeseburger. And I remember really, Kevin? Like, I don't know. I just was so hungry. I just really wanted this cheeseburger. And he was like, well, you haven't been eating.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's true. I was like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. All I could think about it was a cheeseburger. And he was like, well, maybe it's because you just didn't eat like all day.
Well, it's like,
so
I'm sure it was
I
your
can't
body
get on board.
telling you that you needed salt, fat, and protein.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Or
I
no,
know.
salt, fat, and sugar.
So I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with their life, but I'm giving intermittent fasting 2 thumbs down. It was not good for my mental health. Although I will say that I remember that cheeseburger fondly.
Yeah.
The one cheeseburger I've had in like the past almost decade and a half, it was very good.
I think with intermittent fasting, along with veganism and paleo and keto, it's just going to limit the number of calories you intake in a day, and that's what ultimately contributes to weight loss. So it's like not that carbs are bad or meat is bad or fat is bad. It's math at the end of the day. Like if you're eating less than you consume, you lose weight.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure the like just starving yourself till 4 p.m. The timing of it doesn't have anything to do with it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I remember reading an article about Hugh Jackman and how he was like, he doesn't eat any carbs after 6 p.m. And it's just like, I'll endorse that if you look that good.
Yeah. Well, Mark Bittman of the New York Times, he is vegan until dinner and then has a regular dinner. So everyone's got different ways they live their life.
Mark Bittman's cookbook has held me in good stead for at least 20 years. So,
So, fun fact, this is a crappy claim to fame of mine. I'm friends with the sister of the founder of Soylent. So I got some fairly early Soylent because we had gone to visit them, my friend and her family, and she was like, do you want to try it? And I was like, sure. And she sent us home with a couple of cases of Soylent, and that stuff turned my stomach into a lake of fire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I cannot recommend it. And supposedly they have improved upon it. I sure hope they've improved upon it because if I drank that stuff, I would just need to stay in my house always.
Yeah.
I tried it and I was like going through a bad breakup and I wasn't very hungry. I lost my appetite and it just tasted like wallpaper paste. I could not, and it was like to be fair, it was the neutral, like plain flavor. Maybe chocolate's better, but oof, not a fan.
Yeah, it's very like, I read an article about it and someone described the flavor of it as inoffensive, kind of sweet and inoffensive. And that's actually how I think of Lembas in Lord of the Rings, that it's just a little bit sweet, mostly doesn't taste like anything, and is filled with nutrients, and hopefully doesn't give the Fellowship of the Ring napalm gas.
see, to me, this is like the ultimate goal of humanity is to have like a pill you can take for most of your nutrition. And then whenever you want to have like nice food and celebrate food, you can have like a real nice meal and celebrate food that way. But like for your daily like tasks, just give me a pill. Just give me a pill I can take and I can just keep going with my life. I don't have to think about it.
Amy, no.
Well,
so and this is why I disagree with you, because you love coffee so much, but you wouldn't just take a caffeine pill.
No, I would drink coffee and eat my meal pill, and then I would go.
No, you gotta eat.
No, I have my steak dinners every so often. But Ginger
So-
keeps
Don't you think we have like
Ginger keeps trying to say something. Please let
no,
her
you're
talk.
fine.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. I was just going to say, I met Michael Pollan 2 or 3 years ago. And I went up to him and I said, your work inspired me partially to go down this field, my education. And he's like, oh, what are you researching? And I'm researching food and science fiction and fantasy literature. And he kind of looks at me and he's like food pills? No, there's so much more than just the food pill concept, but.
No, bring it. Yes, food pills.
Yeah, I'm
Pro
definitely
food pill.
not here for the food pill. I mean, I'm so tired of cooking. Like, it's funny that during the pandemic, I feel like we are still only eating 2 or 3 meals a day, but I feel like we're eating 500 meals a day. And, but I don't think I would want a food pill. I mean, because like, why do we snack? Because we want to be like chewing on something, or we're bored, or, we want to do something with our hands, or like I saw someone eat a cookie on a show and it makes me think about a cookie. So I think even if I took a pill that gave me all of my nutrients, I would still want to be eating.
To me, it's a little different. So I feel like I'm cheated out of the cooking process when I eat leftovers, and I hate it. Like, I ordered some lamb vindaloo on Friday night, and I've been eating on that for like 2 days. But like, I would just have to microwave it with some rice, and I'm like, but I'd rather be like sauteing an onion or like at least putting a salad together. I don't know. I associate cooking with being a productive person, which maybe is problematic. I don't know, but I just like cooking so much that I don't like when I'm robbed of that experience. I have 3 bins of whey protein, vegan whey protein greens that I want to use because it's like a good meal replacement in the morning, especially. But in the morning, I want like a savory bacon and eggs or like an egg sandwich. I don't know.
Mm.
Man, I like cooking for special, but like for my everyday, when left to my own devices, I end up just eating cheese and crackers for most of my meals.
Cheese and crackers is a wonderful meal.
But not for
Yeah.
every meal.
Yeah, no, I actually today was at Kroger grocery shopping and I decided to go to the fancy cheese section at Kroger and I bought 3 of the little cheese orphans, like the little ins that they sell for cheap.
Oh, I love those.
And I was like, I'm going to have a little mini cheese plate because I want to have a cheese plate because I haven't had one with friends in 9 months.
Well, that's my every night dinner. It's just charcuterie, basically.
Oh, yeah. No,
It's
this will be my
best
little...
ever.
This will be a fun thing I do. So.
Amy, your comment about special occasion cooking reminded me. Ginger, have you read the Lady Astronaut series by Mary Robinette Kowal?
It's on my list.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, you mentioned audiobooks. If you like audiobooks, she narrates them, and she's like a professional voice actor, audiobook narrator. They're wonderful. And I read the first one. We read it for the podcast, and then I listened to the next 2 and listened to her read them. And I mean, I was crying sometimes. She's so good at reading them. But at one point, the main character, Elma, makes a full kosher Passover dinner on her spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of her sort of fussing over how to get the bread to rise just right and how to time it so that the brisket is ready. And then she doesn't have all the things that she would have on hand. And she talks a lot about cooking in the books when she's on Earth. And then when she's in space, it's really important to her to continue to do this. And then also sometimes when it's her turn to make dinners, they all take turns. They mostly eat freeze-dried food, but then they cook sometimes. So it's sort of like an event. It's Amy, it's ideal for you. They have their little pouches most of the time to get their nutrition. And then sometimes she's making bread and she's making brisket and she's making all the vegetables and she makes like cream pies and stuff in space, but she has to figure out how to get things just right. So she'll talk about like the difference in the gravity and getting the eggs whipped just so for a meringue. And it's really fun, really interesting to read. And then a couple weeks ago, I heard an interview on NPR with a chef, Sola El Whaley. And she used to be with Bon Appetit. And I don't know if you guys heard about a lot of chefs of color left Bon Appetit recently. And I don't want to like misstate any of it. I don't know all the details of it, but significantly for her, there were some pay disparities. And so she's got a YouTube channel now and it's called Stump Sola. And she has like this funny wheel that she spins and it will have challenges on it. And so she'll like make a meal with one hand tied behind her back. And so in the interview that I heard, she said that she made a full Thanksgiving dinner, but it said make it astronaut food. And so I watched it before we got on this call to see what it was all about. And she actually made a full normal Thanksgiving dinner and plated it and put the plates of it in a freeze dryer. And I had never seen really what happens. And she pulls the food out and it looked identical to how it looked going in.
Uh-huh.
And then she, and I don't know, she's a co-host. I don't know if he's a co-host or a partner or what, but they sat down to eat it. And it was so interesting. Like they picked up a slice of turkey and bit into it and it crunched.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It was like, she said that the freeze-dried turkey reminded her of the treats that she gives her dog. So the turkey was actually their least favorite thing. But they said that the pumpkin pie was delicious. It was like a candy bar, but it just looked like a normal piece of pumpkin pie. I almost said pumpkin pie, showing my roots there. piece of pumpkin pie. And they like take a bite of this beautiful looking slice of pie and it just goes like they'd bitten into an apple. And they said that the green bean casserole was delicious and crispy. Almost to me, it seemed almost like a green bean casserole latke, like take all the moisture out of it. And then you've just got like this good, crispy, salty kind of patty. And then the sweet potato casserole, they said was really good. And that the mushrooms, the marshmallows on top were sort of like Lucky Charms marshmallows. It was super fun.
I'll bet
I need to read this now. Damn.
Well, it's a YouTube video. You can just watch it.
Yeah.
I remember at some point during my research, I came across an article by British chef Heston Blumenthal, and he was asked by not NASA, but the British space people to design meals for astronaut Tim Peake, who's British. so Heston Blumenthal is known for molecular gastronomy and making things seem like something they're not. Like for Easter last year, I got a chocolate Scotch egg, and it looked like a Scotch egg, but it was made of all kinds of chocolate. So he did a bunch of these molecular gastronomy astronaut meals for Tim Peake, and Peake was like, yeah, he truly captured the flavors and the essences of childhood in this strange freeze-dried food. So it's just science and food is cool too.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'd really like to taste some of that freeze-dried food. Like, I know you can get, astronaut food in little pouches, and it's weird, but I want that slice of pie. Like, could you take that with you to space? I wonder, could you just bag up that full Thanksgiving dinner and take it with you?
If you head to Cabela's, they have a ton of those freeze-dried meals in the hiking section.
I've had the freeze-dried ice cream. I've had astronaut ice cream. I used to get it from the Science Museum when I was a kid.
I've had that too.
I actually don't think I've ever had that.
It's fun. It melts.
It'll melt in your mouth, which is interesting. But
it melts. It's like cotton candy.
It dissolves in your tongue. It's like powdery.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always said it's the opposite of Dippin' Dots. Like, you know how Dippin' Dots melts on your tongue because it's cold, but this melts on your tongue because your tongue is wet.
Yeah, science.
That really sounds like cotton candy to me.
I think this is a great transition. So this is my new favorite work icebreaker for new employees. So I like to ask people, all right, you're on Earth, you're living your life. Aliens come down. They're very friendly. They beam you up to, you're an ambassador to the planet Earth, and you get to bring one meal to show them what you believe is like the greatest meal on Earth, like that showcases like the finest of humanity's culinary talents. What do you bring? I know my answer instantly. So
I thought that it was gonna be like your favorite food and not finest culinary talents, because I don't know what to do with that.
So I'll kick us off. I would bring a bowl of pho, which is one of my favorite dishes on the planet Earth. It's got fragrant herbs, and it's got noodles, and it's got this broth, and it's got like really good beef and weird stuff, but and it's got like a French tradition, but also like an Asian tradition. Like that is what I would give to the aliens, to be like, try this, it is delicious. But I've had friends say like my mom's lasagna, or like a ham sandwich, or a PB&J. So it just depends.
Ham sandwich.
It's just more of a thought experiment about what you value in food. So I've read articles about what they said about that nice English astronaut. It's like, what would make him feel at home in space? So like the opposite of that is like, what would you give to somebody else to make them feel like they're at home on Earth? So.
Well, now my mind is going to the Twilight Zone episode To Serve Man in The Simpsons.
Yes. How to serve man?
No, not to serve man. Currently, in the state that I'm in right now, I would make lasagna. Specifically, I'm going to be making it for my cousin, because unfortunately his mother is in too much like back pain and other pain to make lasagna. And he said yours is my second favorite lasagna that's homemade, and I was going to bring it to him and my uncle and for a game night. But so that's currently on my mind, is how he views lasagna. So I'm sure he would say something like his mom's lasagna at this point, since she can't make it anymore, and I'm the one that's making it for him now.
Yeah. What kind of lasagna? Is it spinach? Is it meaty? Is it cheesy?
It's just kind of like the standard, like, so I prefer to use all ricotta. My mom would mix the ricotta with cottage cheese, but I prefer an all ricotta. If I'm going to make it from scratch, I'm going to make this sauce recipe that I would use Michael Simon's lasagna recipe. That's where my inspiration came from, although I kind of dumb it down because he uses like pork neck and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I'm just going to cook up some Italian sauce. But it's, a fresh sauce, rich ricotta, some fresh mozzarella, and lasagna noodles, and layer it.
Sounds great.
Amy?
Oh yeah, I think something Italian. Like I just, there's something about that, the combination of the noodles, the tomato sauce, I don't know, just it's like a perfect meal to me.
It's like a hug in a bowl. Like
it
Italian
is.
food is so comforting.
It really is. And there's Italian food, even Italian food that isn't really pasta is also, I Mediterranean and Italian, and like the food from that region is really my my favorite. So something, even if it's like something fishy or something like that.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think I'm bringing these nice Martians some really good chocolate mousse.
Ooh, girl, you know I
yeah.
love the chocolate mousse.
They'd have to like that.
Oh yeah.
I don't trust people who don't like chocolate, which is a shame because a lot of my favorite people don't like chocolate. So
I have a few of those in my life too, and
I
it's
just
just like,
Yeah, I feel like, gosh, you guys don't know what you're
I
missing.
don't understand. Just don't understand.
And yet you do know because you've tried it and you know you don't like it. And I don't understand it. I got at the farmer's market this morning, I got some Icelandic chocolate for my mother-in-law because her family they have Icelandic heritage, and it just sort of jumped off the shelf and I noticed it. And I really want to eat it. I'm going to have a hard time shipping it because I bet it's delicious.
Yeah.
like the Chocolat movie with Julia Binoche and Judy
yeah.
Dench and all that. It's just like, what would your ideal chocolate taste like? The chocolate that Vianne would pick out for you.
Oh,
I forgot about that. I read that book when I was a kid. And I just remember being so fascinated by a life where there was just, I think that's probably not what the takeaway was supposed to be, but I was probably like 12 when I read it. A life where you're just surrounded by all the chocolate you could ever want, and it's all the best chocolate.
I like chocolate. I'm not a chocolate fanatic, but I don't understand people that are not lactose intolerant that don't care for cheese. They're like, that's fine. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I'm confused by that too.
Just like, how could so I didn't have dairy last week kind of as like a personal experiment, but I was at Trader Joe's getting a bunch of other stuff and I passed the cheese section and I, it was like, sadly, I don't like a lot of stinky cheeses and I'm working on that.
Oh, me neither. I'm not very stinky.
I know, but I feel so guilty. But I passed.
You're working on it.
I'm working on it. But I passed a big basket of lemon ricotta, which is like Haley bait to the extreme. Yum. And I was just like, give me that bland, acidy, lemony cheese. I didn't buy it, but I'm going to go back probably tomorrow and get it. So.
I don't understand, like, if you didn't like macaroni and cheese, you didn't like a grilled cheese. What is your childhood without grilled cheeses? Maybe I would bring the aliens a grilled cheese. It's so good.
Maybe they would just need
buttery
like
bread
string
and melted
cheese.
cheese.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
String cheese?
That's true. I mean, y'all know how much I love string cheese, but I know that it's not a universal love, so yeah. But like good, just like a mild cheddar, delicious.
I love fresh mozzarella with just a hint of extra salt on top, like a little extra sea salt.
That sounds great.
It is so good. And what is it, like buffalo mozzarella? Is it buffalo milk? I don't know.
What
am I making up when I read it?
It's a water buffalo, so it's not an American buffalo.
Okay, so there actually is some type of buffalo involved. I realized as I was saying it that I was like doing a Michael Scott thing and I didn't know what I was about to talk about. So thank you for saving me. That is some really good cheese.
Yes, it is.
Oh man, good mozzarella. Yep. That's all I can say.
So Haley, you put noodle in your name today in the Zencastr call. So I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't touch on noodles. Do you want to talk about noodles?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most iconic imagery of noodles in science fiction is when they go and get Decker in Blade Runner, and he's like at a little noodle stand. But also in The Fifth Element, when Bruce Willis is at home, his character, this like weird junk ship traveling Asian restaurant comes up and like it's like Uber Eats kind of, but they bring it to you and then cook it in front of you. Like they're having noodles, and there's articles that have been written about like the idea of like in a future world, like it's like more global capitalism has gone rampant, and like there's a lot of like Asian influence on cuisine, and noodles do seem to be kind of perfect. And I'm a big fan of noodles, so that's all.
No, it's so for my novel, How to Cook a Dragon, I knew I didn't want it to be just European style food. So for the cooking competition that takes place in the novel, it's called the Banquest. One of the competitors that I highlight is a Japanese ex-fee. It's hard to describe what it is, but she's not really from Japan because there's no Japan in this world. But one of the things that she makes is noodles, and it really impresses the judges. So I definitely see that noodles are definitely an influence in science fiction and fantasy. Ayette de Bodard, she writes a lot about her French Vietnamese cooking influence, and one of her things she did is I think she wrote about I think she did write about a noodle bar in one of her short stories. I could be wrong about that, but no,
I don't know why it's like a thing, yeah, but you're right.
Well, I guess noodles are easy to store. They're really, really lightweight, and all you need for noodles is hot water.
Mm-hmm.
So they do seem
bread.
like, yeah, they're basically bread. You're right. They're basically bread. They are they're the limbus or the hardtack of space travel. I want to make sure that we talk about Binti's rice dish, because we talked about that so much when we read Binti, and just talk about it generally. I feel like that's like the terror of the foods that we talk about. Because I see rice pudding, and I'm always like wondering, what is that rice dish? Ginger, have you read Binti?
So here's the thing. I started it, and then I got distracted, and I haven't had a chance to go back to it. But obviously what stuck out with Binti for me is when she has to take all the food into her room, and how she's quietly maneuvering around the aliens. It reminded me so much of Ripley at the end of Alien. Like, instead of getting into a suit for survival, Binti is gathering up food for survival. That's what stuck out in my mind.
And she makes sure to grab plenty of that. She calls it just gelatinous rice dish. And we don't get any more information than that. We know it's a dessert, and that it's gelatinous, and it's made of rice. And it's her favorite thing in the cafeteria. And before she goes to hide in her room, she scoops up plenty of it to take with her when she's gathering food. So when we first started doing the podcast, I think Binti was our second book that we did. And so we were kind of trying to do like a themed food or drink when we recorded, which of course obviously has fallen by the wayside since we're no longer actually getting together. But I tried to make us a rice dish, and I did make a dish out of rice. I don't think that it is a thing that you would grab like in the last few moments of survival when you're being attacked by a giant jellyfish who just killed all your friends. This is not what you're going to grab on your way to hiding.
Well, and how did she grab it? Like, did she grab like a Ziploc bag? Did she grab it? Like, is it in her pockets? Like,
well, I actually picture it as sort of being like slices. Like maybe it's like a little like a pie type thing, or like Jello. Like if you had a very thick Jello and you could slice it into wedges, is kind of how I pictured it.
Well, I just brought it up on my on my Kindle. That she has a tray in her hands that she's trying to hold her little Adon cube thing at them. She's got that in one hand because they recognize it, and she's got her tray in the other hand, and so she's trying to load up the tray with all the food while still holding her little geometric cube.
Her cell phone.
Yeah, so I pictured it as like, you know, when you go to like a cafeteria and there are plates and you just like reach in, like at IKEA or something, and you can just reach in and pull out the little plates with the already plated little dessert or tiny salad or a sandwich on it. I imagined it sort of like that, and she was piling little plates of prepared food onto her tray.
Yeah, or like in Star Trek Discovery, how when they pull food out of the replicator, it's on that tray.
Yeah. One thing I will say about the proliferation of rice pudding in human cultures. So I do food photography back in the real world for this monthly supper club that does different cultures featuring refugee chefs generally. And almost every single dessert is some sort of rice pudding analog. So I wonder if there's some sort of like, there's something human in like the idea of like a sustaining gelatinous rice milk dessert. Because a lot of them are gluten-free, so maybe that's like a thing. Because a lot of humans are dairy-free, and a lot of humans, you know, are lactose intolerant. So maybe it's a thing.
Well, here brings up my chance to show off my research.
Please do.
A book by B. Wilson called "The Way We Eat Now," and I don't remember if this is pre-war or post. I'm pretty sure it was after World War I when they started giving free lunches to kids in schools. And one of the things they noticed, obviously, is they wanted to get up their caloric intake for some of these students that were in the low income areas. And rice pudding is full of calories, and so I think that's maybe where part of that comes from, is that rice pudding was so much a part of especially British culture, and it still kind of is in school cafeterias, that they would get rice pudding for dessert. So it might have something to do with that. And also back to porridge is we love our goop.
Yes. Even if it's formed into cakes, we love our goop.
Every culture has a flood myth, and every culture has a rice pudding.
Yeah, no, it's true. I just pulled up that book on Amazon, and the second review is you have to read this book by Nigella Lawson, who I love, so maybe I'll buy it. Man, yeah.
What else, guys?
Tea.
Yes, we've got tea and ancillary justice. So much tea.
My thought on tea, so the two countries where tea is very, 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 very popular is England and Japan, both of which are tiny island nations that have been imperialistic in their past. I wonder if there's something about the ritual of tea that is universal in that sense. I don't know.
Tea is also huge in Arabic and
yeah,
Indian
that's true.
culture.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but obviously, like like you said, when we think about tea, you're thinking about the jokes about the English always stopping for a cup of tea in the afternoon, and
Mm-hmm.
but no, I did a poster on Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere, and something like 19 cups of tea are consumed in that. Maybe not quite 19, but like I stopped and counted each instance of when they get tea, and the big thing is when Richard is given the ritual of the tea before the ritual of the key.
Oh, I don't remember Tea and Neverwhere. I haven't read it in a while. I really love that book, though.
Yeah. So there's that the tea is kind of important and symbolic, and Neverwhere is Richard's been on this journey and he hasn't stopped, and there's this comforting ritual of tea that's kind of reminiscent of the afternoon tea of British life, and there's just that it's a small bit, but it's noticeable when I was going through the book and counting up all the foodstuffs in Neverwhere.
It seems like whenever someone drinks in a book, it's important. You know,
Yeah.
the food may not, the eating may be important, and like you guys have all pointed out, it's sort of something that we can always connect to, you know, no matter how far away the people in this book are in time or distance or on another planet, we all have to eat several times a day. But the drinks, I think, we see drinks in books and they're always there for a reason. So there's a ceremony with the tea, or
Alcohol,
like in ancillary justice, they can't stand it when they don't have tea. Their particular culture is so tea centric that they're just like, well, I would give my left arm for a good cup of tea. Why isn't there any tea? And then we just read the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, and there's a drink called Safe that you're supposed to offer people when they come. Yeah, we don't know if you say it's safe, but we would just say safe as American English speakers. And it's a drink that should be offered when you show up at like a business meeting or a political meeting, something like that. And I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like you can't put poison in it. You know, it would reflect if it had been tampered with at all. So it's a drink that you can give to someone as a gesture of, you can trust me. I haven't done anything to you. Here's this drink that you know is safe to drink.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it seemed like go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it reminds me of that nail polish that's supposed to change color. You can dip it in your drink and see if you've been roofied.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
It also kind of reminds me of like the sociological convention of why we still shake hands. It's not because like I think that my new business coworker has a gun in their, or a knife in their arm, but like you still do the thing that reflects it. I don't know. So maybe that's what tea is kind of like. I don't know.
Is that why we shake hands?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's to make sure that the man that you're touching his hand doesn't have a knife in his forearm.
Oh God, seems like we could just wave and do the same thing.
Well, if you watch Spartacus, the show on Star, they would literally grasp each other's hand or forearms, like
I've seen that.
Big muscly guys, but you're checking to see if the guy is packing a dagger.
I never knew that. I did always wonder why in like warrior-ish movies and shows they do the whole forearm clasp thing. I never thought about it.
I'm gonna start hiding a dagger in my sleeve and chuckle to myself when no one finds it after shaking my hand.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because no one shakes hands anymore.
Right.
So,
and then what happens if you do find it? You're like, oh, we got to fight.
yeah, that's a good question.
You slap him across the face with a glove, right? And then you start, like, the fight starts.
Well, hopefully you also brought yours then.
Right.
I mean, you got to bring a knife to a knife fight.
I was about to say that. Haley has a knife joke I was going to make.
But I stole it. Oh.
Stole it from my brain.
What was I going to say? I like in Star Trek which I'm not a huge fan of, but I like that Captain Picard likes his tea Earl Grey hot.
Yeah.
But like, isn't all tea hot? I don't know. But he wants it extra hot, right? Yeah.
I feel like the more important thing from Star Trek is the food replicators, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Which to me seem a little lazy. I don't know.
Well,
makes
you
sense.
and me are different about this. I would love for a machine to hand me my food for the day, and then I
Oh
would
no!
have to
So
make
I
it.
would rather. I actually call my kitchen, which is a tiny little kitchen with lots of layers and pots hanging. Like, my kitchen is a spaceship's kitchen, a galley, and I want to make all the meals.
Well, Haley, do you know what the holodeck is? Since you're not a big Star Trek watcher,
I do.
Well,
You can go
she's
and
Neelix.
yeah.
Yeah, she is Neelix.
I don't know what this means. Is that an insult? I don't know.
Sort of.
Yes and no.
Neelix. I know that holodeck is like a fake place where you can go to play games and like be in the jungle or be at night.
well, so you could go in the holodeck and you could cook whatever you want. Like you could give yourself a huge kitchen with 9 million pots and pans and have your immersive cooking experience. And then the great part of that is that you don't have to clean it up unless you just want to, unless you just like washing dishes.
But
You
like,
can just
does
be
it
like,
make real
all right.
food?
I don't know, but I think you could eat while you were in there.
I think the holodeck has replicators.
No,
I'm
thanks.
pretty sure that it was like a Voyager thing, or maybe it was a Deep Space Nine thing. I'm pretty sure there was an episode where they mentioned that one of the characters was drinking, and he was actually mentioned that it was synthahol.
The hall.
I could swear.
I would feel very robbed by a holodeck. I like to relax by chopping an onion, so I'm just going to go work on the Pequod or the Terror. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
This is reminding me of Cisco and Riker, how they would like to cook.
Oh, yeah. See, I'm a Riker more than this guy that I just Googled who's
You
not attractive.
are not a Riker.
Okay. I know that Riker sits in chairs funny.
He does do
I know
that. He does do
He
that.
does.
But
Don't worry,
No,
Haley. I
no.
put a link on the Zencaster so you can see who Neelix is and why you are.
no, I like
Well,
that. I clicked it and I got upset, so. You know what? I don't like Star Trek anyway.
On Picard, Riker makes pizza with the bunny corn sausage.
Oh yes, yeah, and the
Bunny corns are like an Easter egg for I think people who play D&D. It's like a fun nod to them. I think so. I think the bunny corn was like a little like wink and a nod to D&D fans.
what was I can't remember the name of the basil. It was like it gave the basil a different name, and I'm like, how did basil get to this planet, and how is it different from Thai and regular basil? Or is it not basil at all, and it's just a plant that coincidentally tastes like basil that they're putting on space pizza?
I just Googled Joseph Sisko, and the number one quote is, "Your father sounds like a wise man, and he makes a fierce jambalaya, so I'm going to be this guy." I don't know anything about Star Trek.
No, that
but
works.
I like this
That
guy.
works. That works.
Cisco's dad is really cool.
Yeah. So I want to be Sisko's dad in our cosplay next year. Done. All right.
Okay, it's Ontarian basil
Oh, okay.
on the bunny. Yeah, I know. Like that doesn't answer the question at all. What is it? I don't know.
Yeah, but my brain was like I said, does this just taste like basil? Like, is it a huge coincidence that it's molecularly the same as basil?
No, it says in 2399, William T. Riker made pizza containing homegrown tomatoes, Ontarian basil, and non-venomous bunny corn sausage.
Good for him.
Oh, but you know what? It says the bunny corn he used had been caught earlier that day by his daughter. And then I remember Kevin complaining, how can he have sausage from a bunny corn caught earlier in the same day? And I was like, well, she was hunting bunny corns, but presumably this is like a previously caught one and they've made the sausage and smoked it or whatever. Because can you make sausage in a day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, there's quick sausage, and you know,
It's just ground meat and
oh,
spices. Yeah.
I thought sausage was cured or something.
It can be,
It
but
can
it
be.
doesn't
I thought
have
it
to
was
be.
a slow meat.
Yeah.
No, I've seen
can be.
there's been several chefs that have made sausage on like Chopped and Hell's Kitchen and stuff like that.
Basically, it's just ground pork with some sage. So, but like good fancy ones, like I got some capicola today before I lost my shopping cart. That was, a cured sausage. So
You lost your shopping cart.
I was at the Buford Highway Farmers Market, and I am shopping for like an hour, and then I get to the line, and I look down and I see some stuff that I bought, like some imitation crab sticks, and then I see a big pound of knockwurst, and I'm like, this isn't mine. And then I look further down and I see a big box of mangoes. And I'm like, oh, this isn't my cart at all.
Like a crate of mangoes.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, this isn't my cart at all. So at some point in the past 20 minutes, I'd swapped carts with somebody.
Oh, that could have been a meat cute.
Yeah. Except that it's a huge store, and I didn't want to walk around looking at every single cart, so I just only got like 3 things instead.
Because I don't want anybody to yell at me about misstating the bunny corn Easter egg, it says Michael Chabon intended the bunny corn as an homage to the horned canine from the original Star Trek series, The Enemy Within.
Oh.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
The joke, the meme that was Spock, that Spock is holding it.
I like that spot.
All right. Anything else? Lost shopping cart, roach jello.
I think we hit almost everything.
Yeah, I think so. The only thing that I think we didn't talk about that was on our list is fish fingers and custard.
Fish fingers.
Oh, I don't know about Doctor Who, so that'd be y'all.
Yeah, well, you put it on the list, didn't you?
Well, but I knew that y'all like Doctor Who. I appreciate y'all.
I'm surprised that you that was something that you were aware of.
I Googled a lot of things, and I recognized how much y'all love Doctor Who, so I thought I would give y'all a solid.
Doctor Who is
very
not
nice.
big on the food really in that show.
Oh, yeah.
No,
that's why.
it really isn't.
Well, I mean, sometimes it is. Like, there's the chips that made the kids super intelligent because they were cooked in the krillitane oil.
Yeah, I guess they have food
There's
feature
that.
and those kinds of things sometimes. So it's not like they're always
then-
eating or anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then there's when we first meet Claire, one of Claire's incarnations, she's making souffle, but the 11th Doctor realizes she can't be making souffle because she doesn't have milk and eggs.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
There's actually an official Doctor Who cookbook.
Really?
Oh, neat.
Why am I
Yeah.
surprised? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by that. Yeah.
But that mentions some of the things, but like how I have an idea for an article, but one of the ones when he uses the Satsuma to defeat the aliens in the sky he was the alien that was trying to backstab him, and when we first see David Tennant's Doctor, he uses a Satsuma to to try and help save the world.
I just asked Kevin like an hour ago, what is a satsuma? It's like an orange?
Yeah, it's like a little citrus.
Like a little orange?
It's like I think it's like one of the varieties of a tangerine.
Oh, okay. It's funny so that's like, is that like a British thing?
Oh yeah,
Like, can I go to Kroger and find a satsuma?
Oh yeah,
I think so.
Satsumas are one of those Christmas gifts that you always. There's a Satsuma in a Christmas stocking.
Oh.
So
They had them at the market this morning, too.
Yeah, my mom would always give us a chocolate orange when we were growing up, just because she got oranges at Christmas. So it was just a thing before, oranges became a year-round thing. Is that the Christmas oranges would come out of Florida and people would be able to have an orange at Christmas.
Yeah,
30,
I always
40
got
years
oranges in my stockings. And whole walnuts, which I didn't like. I guess they're just putting stuff in there. I don't know.
My grandfather always
They
gave
would
us
always be
pecan.
Maybe it was whole pecans. I don't know. It was like a whole nut. What am I gonna do with that when I'm like 4? I'm not using a nutcracker. I'm not gonna sit in my recliner, which my grandparents did, sit in my recliner and crack these nuts and eat them. So. That was just filler.
This line is filler.
This line is filler. Well, there was actually a line in the Hunger Games where Katniss is talking about the only time that she's tried an orange, and it was because her father traded a whole wild turkey for just one orange at one time.
Oh wow, they definitely had scurvy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I guess oranges would be hard to come by unless you live in a climate that you can grow them in. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, but they last for a couple of weeks or months if you keep them right. So,
well, kind of like the thing that I mentioned earlier in the Handmaid's Tale, how she wanted to make oranges happen. I think in the TV show, it explicitly states that the Republic of Gilead defeated the rebels in Florida, and so that's why they had oranges again all of a sudden up in Boston.
Huh.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because you can't grow oranges in Massachusetts. So.
No.
Yeah.
The rebels in Florida. That sounds a little too real right now. All right. Anything else, anybody?
Thank you so much, Ginger. This has been fantastic.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was super fun. It's, just nice to chat with new people and, like you said,
definitely.
geek out about stuff. So
There's not been because all the cons were canceled in the UK, and they canceled Dragon Con, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
yeah,
We had
they
virtual
went
Dragon Con.
virtual.
Yeah, not
They
the
were
same thing.
virtual.
Yeah.
And I would like to say they did a really good job. They did.
He did.
Was it better than the World Con?
Well,
Poor World Con. They had so many problems.
Oh, they had so many problems.
So we didn't officially attend WorldCon. I watched. And Amy, did you watch?
I just watched my friends'
No,
reactions.
I read your live tweet.
I watched the Hugo Awards, and so like the 2 hours of it, or however long it ended up being. That should have been 2 hours. It was actually more like 4. I watched it, and yeah, there were a ton of technical problems, and it's interesting because I feel like the con world would sort of lend itself to having people involved who are more tech savvy and good at internet things, and it had a lot of, in addition to the substantive problems, it had a lot of process and tech problems as well. So I think Dragon Con did a really good job. I mean, maybe they learned from some of those mistakes there, but they had a couple of apps on Roku, so you could watch like new content where they were doing remote interviews with guests, and then they also had it was like Dragon Con TV Land style, so it was like popular old interviews that they just aired recordings of. So there were options, things to watch, and you could do. They had like some interactive contests, a costume contest where people could vote on Facebook, and so that was fun. And then one of the things that we did that was super fun is we got together on my front porch, and I made food that you can get in the con suite at Dragon Con, which is like a little. They set up 2 rooms in one of the hotels every year, and they don't advertise it, so it's sort of like a word of mouth thing. And the food is like the cheapest tortilla chips and canned cheese and like Mountain Dew and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And it's, when you've been there for 3 days, it's the most delicious thing you've ever eaten.
Yeah.
So I fixed us some peanut butter and jelly and cheap nachos and Mountain Dew and Cheerwine and all like con suite fare. And we sat on the porch, and a couple of people who go to Dragon Con had made these really cool compilation videos and had them up on YouTube that were like 30 minutes to an hour long of previous years. And they were mostly just like shots of the crowds at the con and people in their cosplays and everything. And so we watched those, projected it outside on my porch, and it was so much fun to watch those.
Aww.
So it was by no means the same, but I do think they did a good job, and we got to have some fun and do some things that were similar to what we would normally be doing.
Yeah, it's. I think I even heard that did they change the dates of DisCon? DC?
So they just did a survey asking if people would prefer in person in December, and they had some dates, or virtual on the original August dates.
Okay.
I guess they're hoping that maybe by December in person would be safer and more feasible.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so. God, I hope
Something
so.
that we just keep saying. We're like, well, by then it'll be fine, right? And then it's not.
Yeah. Well, no, definitely. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
Great. All right. Well, this has been our Fantastical Food Special with Ginger Lee Thomason. Ginger, do you have a Twitter or social media? I mean, I know you have Twitter, but do you have a Twitter or social media or anything where people should find you or look for your work?
Yes. My main webpage is just gingerleethomason.com. My Twitter is @wordsofginger. And can't remember if that's my Instagram or not. I don't post much on Instagram, but yeah.
So Twitter's the best place to find you. Your Twitter and your website.
The best place to find me. I shouldn't be on Twitter as much because I'm supposed to be finishing my thesis, but that's the best place to see me ranting about stuff.
You can't just work. One can't simply work on one's thesis.
No, but one can spend several hours on Twitter when they should be.
That's right. One can.
Listen, you'll get it done. I have faith in you. It'll happen. Yeah. And from what I've seen of academic Twitter, everyone else who's working on their thesis is doing the same thing. So don't worry. All right, everybody.
sorry, I went and grabbed another beer. What's the question?